remember Nathan Knorr very well. I was at Bethel headquarters for 4 years while he was president. Charles Taze Russell was responsible for the failed prophecies of 1874 and 1914. Judge Rutherford was responsible for the 1925 failure, as well as the World War II failure. Nathan Knorr, under the influence of Vice President Fred Franz, was responsible for the 1975 false prophecy.
I remember how excited we all were as we studied this book, Life Everlasting in the Freedom of the Sons of God, and learned that 1975 would mark the end of the 6,000 years of man's history from the date of Adam's creation. That meant that Armageddon would come in 1975, and then the final 1,000 years of Christ's millennial reign would start. We all stepped up our field service time.
Don Nelson was a Gilead graduate in 1956. He was trained for world missionary service. He is pictured in the Proclaimer's book on page 525.
I remember with some nostalgia the happy days in the Kingdom Hall locally where my wife and I attended. The way the Watchtower representatives, the circuit overseers, would come by and say, edging forward and whispering confidently into the microphone, "Only 37 months till Armageddon, brothers." And then on the succeeding trips, "Only 24 months till Armageddon, brothers," and "Only 12 months till Armageddon, brothers." Unfortunately, my wife and I left the Watchtower Society in 1974, which was the year before Armageddon was supposed to hit and demolish the world. So we never did find out how the circuit overseers dealt with "only 1 month till Armageddon, brothers," or "only 1 month after Armageddon, brothers," because we had by this time found out the lie of the Watchtower chronology, and we saw it for what it really was, insane.
1974 was a very difficult time for me. I was freaking out. I had to make a decision, a critical decision, because my wife had to undergo surgery and the doctor said she needed a blood transfusion. And I had to make the decision. And the brothers were encouraging me to make the right decision to please Jehovah, because after all, Armageddon was only a year away, and even if she died, she'd be resurrected right away.
You could just imagine the fear. I had so much fear. It was so frightening. I was near death. I was in a hospital, and the brothers and sisters told me to take my stand for Jehovah and don't accept a blood transfusion. If I accepted the blood transfusion, I would die at Armageddon. If I didn't and I died, I'd be resurrected. The Great Tribulation was coming. It was 1974, and 1975 was at our doorstep. And by staying loyal to Jehovah, I would be resurrected. So that was the hope I was given.
A few years before 1975, the elders convinced me to sell my stamp collection, which had been in my family for 3 generations. Had I kept it, it would be worth over $1 million today. When the date 1975 failed, I realized that they were wrong, and I soon left the organization.
I remember how we were kept on the edge of our seats at our assemblies in the late 1960s, while the society paraded one couple after another onto the platform, who had sold their houses and goods and had gone full-time in the ministry for the few remaining months before Armageddon. Some remortgaged their homes. Some emptied their bank accounts. My family and I sold our home and moved to where the need was greater, so all could hear the message of the Watchtower prior to 1975.
Well, in 1973, I started a company called Trimline, which eventually employed about 1,500 Jehovah's Witnesses through literally hundreds of distributors. There were many that came to me. They wanted to go into business so that they could pioneer. After all, 1975 was approaching. And then as 75 got closer, though some criticized me, even calling me the ridiculer of 2 Peter. And I just told them, well, when the Watchtower stops growing, I'll stop growing. And of course, here we are today, many years later.
I remember the hush that fell over us Jehovah's Witnesses at the assembly when the announcement was made to hold Bible studies no longer than 6 months. In view of 1975 coming up fast, one brother conducted 16 Bible studies, but at the end of 6 months, he had none. The circuit overseer told us not to be upset when our Bible studies fizzled out. He said, those people had had their chance and did not deserve to live in Jehovah's New Order if they couldn't make up their minds to be Jehovah's Witnesses in 6 months. We were told to go out and look for others and hurry.
1975 came and went without Armageddon and without the ushering in of the 1,000-year reign of Christ. All were to be destroyed other than Jehovah's Witnesses. How did the Watchtower Society handle this embarrassment?
As usual, the society blamed its members for the failed prophecy, just as they had done in the past. President Nathan Knorr took a back seat as Vice President Fred Franz tried to cover up the failure. He started with denial. Franz admitted disappointment on the one hand, but on the other hand, he refused to admit his guilt in setting the date. He said he hadn't been specific, but he had. He said he didn't definitely say Armageddon would come by 1975. He only said it might. But anyone attending the assemblies knew otherwise. Much more was said than was printed. So you see, 1975 was a major disappointment to all.
When Nathan Knorr died in 1977, Fred Franz went on to become president of the society. Did he continue to deny responsibility for the 1975 failure?
Fred Franz continued to deny his responsibility for 1975. I had the opportunity to personally confront Franz in a telephone interview and pointed out to him that his denials held little weight. After all, he had been very specific about 1975 in the publications, and I read him a few quotes. I told him that's why Jehovah's Witnesses gave up everything for 1975. It was Franz who forced them to believe 1975 would see the end. He was now at a loss for words. His own statements had condemned him. He was a false prophet, and I told him so.